comments, Congressman Connolly. Thank you for hosting this forum and inviting the Professional Services Council to provide these comments. The issue of how the government acquires services continues to challenge both the federal government and the industry. And although gains have been made, it's crucial that Congress and the executive branch continue to address the current and future obstacles to help remedy that. My comments this morning will focus on the role the federal acquisition process plays in fostering innovation so that the challenges in these areas are addressed, met, and sustained. The nation's fiscal environment will result in reduced funding across many federal programs, activities, and contracts. However, the budget situation also creates an opportunity for greater innovation, but only if the government makes sound business decisions that fosters the ability of the private sector to innovate. You heard a lot about that innovation capability this morning. As the government makes tough decisions about what it must invest in, it must also be cognizant of how it invests. In the terms of the federal acquisition process, this means that the government must buy smarter and not focus solely on short-term savings in lieu of the more strategic, longer-term benefits, what Mr. Van Roka referred to as the cost of price only at the point of execution. The federal acquisition system is an integrated ecosystem with multiple variables. Rarely does any single action provide the full explanation for the government's or the industry's action. However, we do know that several current government initiatives are having an effect on the marketplace. I want to talk about two this morning. The first is the use of lowest price technically acceptable contract awards, where such approach simply does not make sense, and the implementation of initiatives that would drive commercial companies out of the federal marketplace effectively decreases competition for government contracting. This LPTA standard for evaluating bids for the purchase of commodities is undergoing a troubling expansion, driven by a singular focus on short-term price. While LPTA is an appropriate evaluation technique for the government to use, its misapplication to complex solutions can lead to reduced quality and reduced mission capability, where value-based decisions may produce greater benefits. Likewise, when companies are not rewarded for developing key capability discriminators, and the competition is about adequate and cheap rather than high quality and high value, it becomes increasingly difficult, if not impossible, for the companies to invest in research and development, workforce development, or continuous training for the benefit of the government. Too many statements suggest that LPTA is now the default option for contracting personnel, and that a justification is necessary to use any other approach. This message is translated by the contracting officers, the frontline contracting officers, as a mandate to use LPTA, except in the most extraordinary of circumstances. This leaves little room for factoring in innovation for the agency throughout the life of the contract. In short, it creates a race-to-the-bottom environment. Touch briefly on commercial items. Their competition in the federal marketplace is a key driver of both efficiencies and lower price. We see that day after day after day. Thus, the federal government should take initiatives to increase competition to the maximum extent practicable. Increasing competition has been a theme repeated in this administration's contracting reform efforts and in DOD's better buying power initiatives. However, a recent DOD legislative proposal to change the government-wide definition of commercial items would, in our view, erect barriers for commercial firms to sell their goods and services to the government and would actually drive competition out of the federal marketplace. As Congress promptly recognized during the development of legislation in 1994 and 1996, the inclusion of commercial items is essential to providing the government with the flexibility to procure items and services from the commercial sector in a streamlined manner, with minimal government-unique terms and conditions. Prior to those 1994 and 1996 changes, many commercial companies simply refused to do business with the federal government because of the unique government administrative and other requirements, many of which bear little similarity to the generally accepted standards under which the commercial sector operates. In the first 2 decades after the enactment of that legislation, the federal government generally honored its stated preference for the use of commercial items and limited the imposition of government-unique terms and conditions. Today, however, I fear we risk a return to the government imposing those standards and creating insurmountable barriers for competition. A few words about the federal workforce, and not just about the acquisition workforce. This includes not only the contracting officers, but those who are engaged in the acquisition process, from requirements to awarding contracts and contract administration. So we talked a little bit this morning. The U.S. government, and quite honestly the government contractor industry, is in a worldwide competition for talent. No longer is the federal government the leader in attracting that talent. In fact, according to the Office of Personnel Management, as of the October 1 of last year, the last time statistics are available, only 17% of the federal workforce, not just the acquisition, but the total federal workforce, categorized with technical skills and the scientific, the engineering skills. In addition, there are over 4 times as many federal employees over 50 as under 30. And so the introduction of technology and the skill sets to keep pace with that technology presents a challenge. Much has been said about the need to ensure the federal acquisition workforce is appropriately resourced and highly trained. We fully support that. The biggest threat is that as the government rebalances its total workforce, draconian reductions to the federal acquisition workforce will occur, whether by commission or omission, wiping out some of the gains in this important area. I think more can be done across the government to protect and build on that workforce. Let me finally touch on the issue of collaboration. In order to spur innovation in the age of declining budgets, collaboration and communication between government and industry is more critical today than ever. Unfortunately, the trend has been for the federal government acquisition professionals to move away from meaningful communication with industry for fear of protest, for fear of oversight. In the best of budgetary times, this has significant consequences. In today's declining budget scenario, these consequences are multiplied. Thus, it's absolutely critical that Congress and the administration continue to encourage better communication between government and industry at every possible opportunity. There are clear rules and boundaries that are set. We all understand those. It's those other areas of the ongoing communication that's critical. Without question, challenges remain in the federal acquisition environment. The budget poses the biggest threat. However, spikes and declines in federal budgets are not unprecedented, and both the government and industry have been able to manage their way through difficult times in the past. What is important today as we continue down this road is that we do not make decisions that make the situation worse. We have to focus on spurring innovation, driving competition and collaboration, and expanding the use of technology. We must avoid eviscerating the gains made in the workforce, and must not allow our efforts at acquisition workforce training to simply atrophy. We've been active in these areas. I know both of you members have been active in these as well. We appreciate the opportunity to discuss those with you today and look forward to the dialogue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chvotkin. Mr. Humphrey.